Hi, everybody. This is Maya, and this is my long overdue Campnanowrimo update as far as my project. Um, we all know I failed at Veda, and I've spent the last week looking at this outline. It's a good outline, it's about 10,000 words of outline. And I've been looking at it and wondering why I'm not excited about it. It doesn't excite me. The story is good. The characters are good. I'm happy with where the story went, but I have no excitement to actually write the thing. And it's making me really think about who I am as an artist and what type of writer I want to be. And it seemed very fortuitous that today Caleb J. Ross uploaded his latest podcast, and the question was, would you sell out as an artist? And I realized that that's why I'm not excited about this project, because while it's a good story, it's not what moves me as far as art. I created the series because I needed, I mean, let's be frank. Like, I write literary fiction, and literary fiction doesn't pay a lot. And I would like to eventually be a full time writer. And so I was like, well, if I have a pen name and I put out, some really popular type fiction, and I do a series and I do all the indie stuff, then maybe I can finance my literary fiction career. Maybe I can use pulp genre novels to put myself through an MFA program. Um, and so I wrote this outline, and that was my focus for Camp NaNoWriMo. And originally, I wanted to fast draft it. And every time I sat down to work on it, I would look at it and it's like, it's good. Why am I not excited? Why am I not waking up, jumping out of bed, ready to write this thing? Because the outline is good. The characters are interesting. There's nothing wrong with the story. And it's because it doesn't move me. And so I've really been thinking the last couple of days about how I can make it so that it does move me. What can I do? What can I add? What can I change to give me something to sink my teeth into? Can I add literary elements? Can I add depth or another like more internal plot line? Can I add something to the series that will make it so that when I get up to write it, I'm excited? And then, I always say, if you've been on my old channel, because I've said this through the years, that I firmly believe everything happens for a reason. That every time I've had a big change, every time I've learned something big, it's always been preceded by a disaster or a feeling of fear. There's always a hint. And I was injured 3 weeks ago, and I've been out of work, and I don't know when I can go back because workman's comp takes freaking forever, and I'm sitting here freaking out, and I don't have temporary disability yet. And I'm like, how am I going to make money to pay rent? All this stress. And then this job fell into my lap, and I'm looking at it. I'm like, well, I can do this while I write. I can do that as I'm getting through my MFA program. Maybe I don't want to write novels that I'm not excited about, because I'm not excited about them. I would rather be editing Past and Remisian Rising. Like, that's what I want to be doing. And so I am shelving my 5-book outline, 10,000 words of outline. And who knows, maybe eventually down the line, an epiphany will hit, and I'll find something, or maybe excitement will come out. Like, when I'm done editing, my 2 projects, maybe all of a sudden I'll get excited about it. I don't know. But I feel better since deciding that it's okay to set it aside. And I feel better since deciding it's okay for me to want to write that type of fiction. I've really been struggling for 2 years with my identity as a writer, because I didn't want to be a literary writer. I want to be a popular writer. I want to be a writer that people read and that people are excited about. I would like to be popular. I would like to eventually write full time. And there are very few literary writers that write full time, if any at all. Like I don't even know if there are any. Like, seriously, I honestly don't know if there are any. And I'm realizing that literary fiction is where my heart is. And I see problems in literary fiction and I want to help fix them. I want literary fiction to have a second heyday. And I want to be part of that movement. And I can't do that if I am using up all my spare time writing novels that I'm not excited about. Because it takes time to write the type of stories I want to write. I'm getting ready to submit a short story for a contest, and I wrote this short story in last June. It's gone through about 17 edits. It is a good short story, and I spent 3 hours editing 6 more pages at the word level. And when I say the word level, I'm not talking about, is the grammar good? Is the story good? Are the characters good? Do I have any typos? No. I'm going through each sentence and I'm asking myself, is this the best word to express this idea? And you can't do that for an entire novel if you're writing a 5-book series that needs to get out and you want them out every 2 months in order to hit the Amazon logarithm. You can't write like that. And it sucks because I look, a lot of my people I really look up to as far as indie authors, they're able to write so prolifically, and I admire that. And having to admit to myself that I'm not that type of writer, sometimes it makes me feel like there's something wrong with me, that maybe like I'm broken in some way, which makes no sense, you know? And it's not that I hate genre fiction, because I read horror. I read some YA. I average about 2 YA novels a year. I average about 1 to 2 horror novels a year. But the majority of my reading is literary. And the majority of the horror novels I read could also be considered literary. They're closer to literary than they're psychological horror, and they tend to be very internal. And they tend to use a lot of words I don't know. And how can I expect myself to write fast if I can't even read fast? You know, I say all the time that I'm a slow reader. And it's not that I can't read. And, you know, I've given myself flack for being slow. And then, you know, I've changed my reading strategy because I really want to get to the point where I'm reading 1 to 2 books a week before I get into an MFA program. So I'm well prepared and I'm much better read, because I have not read a lot of modern literary fiction. I just got sucked in by the classics in my teens, and then in college I didn't read anything really. You know, if it wasn't a textbook, if it wasn't about psychology, I wasn't reading it. So I'm sitting here and I'm reading, and I'm realizing it's not that I'm slow, it's that I am literally looking up words, underlining, notating in margins. I am slow because I'm reading differently. And I like that. Like, you know, occasionally I find a book that I just get into the story and I just zip right through. But I enjoy books where I have to chew on them, and where the language makes me happy, and where a passage is so beautiful I have to read it out loud 3 times just because it's so pretty. And I enjoy that. So if that's how I read, how would I expect my writing to be any different? And so this short story, I've gone through 17 edits. I've literally spent it probably took me 2 hours to write the story. I outlined the story ahead of time, which probably took me an hour. And I've probably spent 60 hours editing the short story. That's a lot. Now, as I become a better writer, that will go down. But still, the point remains that it's a different type of editing, and I need to lighten up on myself a little bit and recognize that it's not that there's something wrong with me. I'm just a different type of writer, and not compare myself to so many awesome indie genre writers, because the whole reason why I follow these people is because they're doing things that literary fiction isn't doing. They're doing things that's preserving the art form, and I want to take those lessons and use them for literary fiction so that we can preserve that art form as well. I want to make sure literary fiction doesn't die because the big five are stupid. I want to make sure literary fiction doesn't die because it got sucked up into academia. Literary fiction wasn't always sucked into academia. That's been a problem in the last century. Before that, yeah, there were a lot of rich people writing literary fiction, but literary fiction wasn't just for professors. And we need to get back to that. And how do you get back to that? By making sure there's story in the story, by cultivating readers, by marketing. Marketing isn't a bad word. And so while I want to continue learning from those types of writers, I also need to recognize that I'm not that type of writer and that it's okay. That if I want to spend 60 hours editing a short story, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with me. That doesn't make me a bad writer. That if I sit down to write a 5-book series that I literally look at and I know the characters are good and I know the story's good, and every time I start to write the first page, I get sick to my stomach, I have to recognize that that's me saying that I'm not that type of writer. And what's funny is I'm looking at the story and I'm thinking, maybe it would make a good screenplay. And that's something I've thought about. And when I think about writing that genre as a screenplay, it doesn't give me the same feeling in the pit of my stomach. That sounds interesting. It sounds new. It sounds adventurous. It sounds challenging. And so that may be something that I come back to eventually, because the story is really good. It's a good story. So I don't know what's going to happen. It's an interesting question. It may end up being like a TV series. It's a good premise and it's something that could go long term, but there would be an end point. It would be like, The Killing, where season 1, it had a beginning, middle, and end. And then several seasons later, they try to make it too long. And so I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I do know that right now I'm focusing on becoming the type of writer that I want to be, becoming the type of writer that I admire so much in my gut of guts, and that feels natural to me. Writing the type of books that I want to read. And to do that, that's going to entail reading. It's going to entail study. It's going to entail workshops and editing. And yeah, I don't have to go to an MFA program, but I really want to. I want to learn from other writers. I want to be part of a writer's community. I want to have 2 years of sitting in a tiny apartment by myself with a dog and writing and writing and writing and writing and writing. And when I think about that, it makes me really happy. So that's where I'm going. This turned out a lot longer than I expected because I've been putting off this video. Towards the end, when I hit 10,000 words and I was ready to start writing and I just couldn't make myself sit down and start typing, that's when I knew something was wrong. And I think it's because that's not my art. If that genre was my art, then I would be excited to write it. I would be sitting down, excited about the story, excited about the characters, but it's not my art. And if I can't make it my art, then I don't need to be doing it. Selling out is never a good thing, and that goes both ways. If you are a genre writer and you feel insecure about the fact that you like to write horror and you try to write a literary fiction novel, you're going to be miserable. It's going to suck and no one's going to want to read it. And so if I know that, why do I feel like saying I'm a literary writer and writing these genre novels isn't making me happy? Why do I feel like that's a bad thing? And it really comes down to self-esteem and, feeling like a bit of imposter syndrome. Not even just a bit, a lot of imposter syndrome. Because who am I to say that I want to write the great American novel? Who am I to say that I want to change literary fiction? Who am I to say I have all these lofty goals? That's what goes on in my head. But when I think about my dream novel, the novel that is the reason I want to go to an MFA program, because I know I can't write it without years of study. When I think about that novel, I can't get the smile off my face. And I feel like that novel is the novel that when I die, that's the novel that I want to stick around, because that's the novel that's going to say the thing that I feel like every person alive, there is a lesson or a message in their life. There's some constant theme. You know, there's themes in books, there's themes in story, there's themes in movies. People are attracted to theme, and I think people are attracted to theme because people have themes. And the theme of my life, I want to put that in a novel, and I want that novel to live after me. And I think it's important. And saying that makes me feel pretentious and annoying and snooty. And I hate saying it because I have massive imposter syndrome and I don't think I'm good enough and I don't think I'll ever be good enough. And I have all those who the hell do you think you are going on in the back of my head. And I'm sure a lot of new novelists, new literary novelists have that feeling because academia has taught us that literary is just so lofty. It's just another genre.